Hello Math 152 students. In this video, we're going to take a look back at one of the problems we discussed in class. This problem is on page 74, number 27, and it was looking at the continents, the land areas, and highest elevation. So what I did is I typed the different elevations into StatCrunch. So notice we have Africa, Antarctica, Asia, Australia, and all the different continents listed out here. One tip is instead of having variable 1, variable 2, you can actually name these so that when you create your graph, the names will automatically pop up for you. So I'm going to put my highest elevation. So you'll see how that appears on the graph instead of variable 1. So what we were discussing in this example was whether or not it would make sense to draw a pie chart for land area, which we don't have in here, and highest elevation. So the highest elevation here. What we determined in class was a pie chart would be okay for a land area, so would a bar chart. And for highest elevation, a pie chart would really not make sense because even if I totaled these up, the idea of the total didn't have a good physical meaning. So when I turn these into percents, although numerically I can do it, it just didn't have a good interpretation. So what I wanted to illustrate is how StatCrunch is going to think about this. So go to Graph, Pie Chart, and I'm going to choose with Data. Select my column with highest elevation, and I've got my count in percent, and I'm going to choose Compute. Okay, so let's take a look at what happens. StatCrunch really does not understand what this is. You can see it not only did not make what you might think it would make, but it just made every category equal, which is not the idea here. In fact, just doing this is really not what you would have done by hand. In other words, a pie chart by hand would have given the fourth one, which is actually Australia, the smallest piece of the pie. So let me go back and show you one other way to do this. So let's close this, because that's definitely not what we wanted. And I'm just going to type the names right here. Okay. So one thing that StatCrunch can do is go in and do a pie chart with summary. So your categories, I actually had to type my categories in variable 2. Those are my continents, a little bit backwards. Notice your book has the continents first. And let's actually exit out of here. And let me type in continents. Alright, so we go create our pie chart. And this time we can think about the data as summarized. Instead of just being 7 data points with those as the values, it's more of a data table summary. So StatCrunch processes that a little bit differently. And let's select our categories. The category is actually the continent. And the counts, think about how many feet in elevation we have as being our highest elevation. Here, if I would have switched them, like our book had, the first would have been our category, the second would have been our count. Let's see if this is what we would like it to look like. Okay, so maybe this is more of what we were expecting. Notice Australia has the smallest percentage, but what we discussed was even if I calculated that 5.48%, that doesn't mean that Australia has 5.48% of the highest elevations in the world. It doesn't mean it has really 5.48% of anything. In other words, these percentages don't really have any physical meaning. It would be better if we wanted to create a graph with a bar plot. And in this case, I'm doing it a little bit backwards here, but I could choose the summary. Anytime you have 2 columns of data that you want to think about, like continent and elevation, My category was my continent. My counts, in other words, my feet elevation, were the highest elevation. Okay, and this is better. This is showing me that Asia has the world's highest elevation. And here, the highest elevation in Australia is much, much lower than any of the rest. Different options you can do with this. You can choose things like how you arrange these bar heights. You can make them ascending, descending. Here we just have them in the order that they were listed in our continents. But I just wanted to illustrate that StatCrunch will do whatever it is that you ask. If you're not sure what kind of graph that you want, you need to think about visualizing that on paper and whether it makes sense before you try to ask StatCrunch to do stuff. Alright, so that's it for this video.